Oh my goodness. You folks, this is probably one of the greatest guests we've had. Like, I say that a lot, don't I?
Yeah, you say that about all our
That's
guests.
funny. We could have like a whole reel of me saying that, but that's just our audience's good fortune. And today's guest, Steve Young, he raises the bar yet again for, his eruditeness, his cautious
What's
optimism,
eruditeness mean?
means he talks good.
He talked good. English good to him.
Yeah, like that. Um, Informed, intelligent, witty conversationalist.
Yeah.
But he's also, for someone who has so many achievements, he was on the Letterman show. He's worked with the Simpsons. He's been a big
Got his
hit in
own.
New York and has won awards for his acting. It's amazing how humble and accessible and grounded he is to just
Yeah.
hang out with.
Yeah.
Um, we did manage to get a little vulnerable with him, which was interesting because when we tried to take him there one time, and he got a little bit like he kind of deferred, and I was like, "Oh, that was a politician answer right there." And then we circled back around, and we were able to get him to talk a little bit about the challenges in life that have brought him to this place where he's writing country music and the heart heart heartache heart heartache insurance, I think, is the album title. And
Yeah.
man, what a great guy, super fun. You're gonna love it, and definitely stick around for the whole show because we get like right at the end, we just couldn't stop talking to each other. Like Greg and I were like, okay, well, let's wrap it up, and we wrapped it up, and then another great subject came up, and he's so genuine and so interesting that it's really well worth our time. It's like a good itchy eye. You
Yeah.
want that satisfaction.
I was noticing you're messing with your face quite a bit there. Um, Drink adrenochrome cola, support Blast and Compton Cowboys, pin us, subscribe, rate, and enjoy the ride.
Sis, hallo?
Blijven.
Bestuur zeker wegen them.
Jooi iets niet, joh.
Two outlaws on the lam, taking the back roads through America.
You can't drink enough coffee for this show.
And now it's time for Monday Madness with the Moped Outlaws, Greg and Mark.
Hello.
And we're live with another episode of Moped Outlaws, and we have our first guest of season 5, 2025, Mr. Steve Young.
Steve Young is an Emmy-nominated comedy writer for legends like David Letterman and Lorne Michaels, and is now charting new territory as a recording artist. He released Broken Heart Insurance in 2024, his debut album of humorous yet heartfelt alt-country songs, and it was produced by Grammy winner Alison Brown. But as you will find out in this episode, Steve is a polymath. He has done a whole amazing array of things, and we're going to get into all the ones that we think are fun. Welcome.
Thank you. And yes, that was all true. And there may be some of your viewers going, wait a minute, that's not the Hall of Fame quarterback. I've been duped. No, it's a common enough name that I do get some cross currents of people disappointed that I am not the football player. So if any of your viewers tuned in hoping you were going to have this exciting interview with Steve Young from the 49ers, I hope by the end, maybe you'll go, maybe there are two Steve Youngs in the world I'm interested in.
That other Steve Young knows nothing about baseball.
Yeah, I don't know. I sometimes wonder, we'll talk about like my weird stuff, and I now sometimes fantasize or wonder if he is being asked by his friends, can this be true? You put out an album and you're in a documentary about corporate musical theater? No, that's not me. I don't know who that guy is. That's somebody else. So, yeah, I hope in some small way I am warping his life a little bit.
Well, he's had his time in the limelight, his career relatively short compared to yours, and we haven't heard much from him. So right now you're the dominant Steve Young as far as Q scores go, Steve.
And I'm just getting going.
I love that. So I have a question. I want to dive right in.
All right.
What was the inspiration behind Broken Heart Insurance, your new record?
I'd been fooling around with songwriting for a few years. Even by the end of the Letterman show, I was gotten so I could play guitar decently and was starting to play with lyrics. But I eventually came to the realization, and it was a huge, and it shouldn't be a shocking realization, but all my life listening to pop songs about love and heartbreak, and I just thought, oh yeah, somebody sat down and wrote them and whatever, and it's, you have to make a record and sell the record. It occurred to me, many, maybe even most of these most powerful songs we all know and love have their origins in someone being overcome by huge feelings, whether it's joy or agony or whatever, and going through a period of my life where I was feeling the big feelings and starting to play with songwriting. That's where, like, I thought, oh, I wish I could take out broken heart insurance, because if this doesn't end well, I know I'm going to be sorry. And then, oh, broken heart insurance. now at the point of my life where a phrase like that makes me think maybe that's the beginning of a song. And so that was one of the ones that flowed out of the deep personal stuff. There are other ones that are from some part of my personality, but are not quite that emotional. Like I have the one about fitted sheets and how you struggle to fold it and struggle to put it on the bed. And that one does take a strangely deep philosophical turn, but it's not quite the same agony as heartbreak.
I'll just say that I've had trouble with my fitted sheets in the dryer, wrapping them to this cosmic ball.
Yes.
And this year, I got in my stocking a product that you can anchor the four corners of those fitted sheets to it. And no longer.
And we're now taking an advertising break. Go for it.
Well, no, I don't remember the name of the product, but I just want you to know, Steve, you don't have to suffer the pain of your fitted sheets balling up in the washer and dryer anymore. I after the show, we'll talk about what that product is.
And I appreciate that. And I did find that as much as people are liking something like the Broken Heart Insurance song or whatever, I really seem to have hit a universal nerve with this fitted sheet thing, because everybody goes, I know, what's wrong with, why can't they? And then maybe now they can think of some better ideas, but that was a fun one. And so you just never know from what quadrant of your life inspiration is going to come from. Oh, my heart is broken, or, oh, I'm pissed off about bed linens.
They're awful. The same bed, the same room is involved in both quite often.
Quite often, yes. They're perhaps you've got a song there.
Maybe. Were you a fan of Dr. Demento when you were young?
Yes, Dr. Demento, my suburban Massachusetts youth, was this alluring thing that was on just when I was supposed to be going to bed on like Sunday night.
Sunday night, yeah.
I would secretly lie in my darkened bedroom with headphones on so my parents couldn't hear that I was listening to the radio and I was supposed to be asleep. I don't think they would have been too horrified. They were not so strict about policing my cultural life. But yes, Dr. Demento, I can still remember many of the songs. Little did I realize that someday I would put my toe in the water of writing interesting / weird songs. But yeah, that was definitely.
That's what I'm. So, like, were you conscious of those artists that came before you when you were creating this album?
I suppose it's unavoidable that all your life you've been sucking up influences, and people might ask me now, well, who are some of the kinds of artists that you would cite as influences? And the first rank, the most obvious rank, is some of the country and bluegrass people I eventually got to know and love. Flatt and Scruggs, people like the Stanley Brothers is another great one, but just Buck Owens, I love that stuff. And in Nashville, where I was doing this recording, there were people who are like top rank musicians in the country and bluegrass world, and that was thrilling. But then there's the sort of secret back row kind of looking down, which could be like Flight of the Conchords. They might be giants who I've only recently come to know a little bit, and I really admire. They're going to write a song about a topic that you just don't think there should be a song about. I'm all in for that. So that's, again, with the fitted sheet, that may be creeping into the territory of some of these odder musicians.
How do you feel about the way that songwriter royalties and the kinds of publishing structures that go with this compares to your television experience?
I was very, very lucky with television. I got in when there was still a way for people to get up a ladder a few rungs and be in the middle class. And I was at the Letterman show for 25 years, also worked on The Simpsons a little bit, a few other shows. I was able to raise a family in New York City, and it wasn't a lavish world for us, but it was comfortably middle class. Now, I think that has largely fallen apart. And talking to a lot of younger writers who just think, I don't know how I'm ever going to buy property or raise a family. And that has unfortunately very much spread to music. It seems that we're seeing a world in which the only people making money anymore are the people who control the platforms. And you're an artist and you stream your song 100,000 times, you're going to get a check for 8 cents. And you're not going to be able to make that your career now. You're going to have that as your passion project and your hobby. But unless you're the 1% of the 1%, like Taylor Swift, you're not really going to see life-changing or even life-sustaining money out of any of this. That said, people make stuff because they are born to do it and they have to. And that's me. And I'm sure that's you guys and a lot of the people just, I'm going to do it whether or not I get paid. I would love to get paid. Oh, I would love to get paid. But I'm going to be a Walking Dead person if I don't make the stuff and just do it. So that's kind of the philosophy there.
So you really didn't weigh the financial transition and just dove in full head because it was a calling, literally.
Yeah, I keep picking creative fields that are on their way out. I mean, I caught the end of the good years with television. That seems to be gone now. Music. Sometimes I think, if I just could have been born much earlier and be in Nashville in 1965, I would be writing songs and hanging out with people, and songs would get made and people would buy the records and there would be money. And now there's really not. And then, okay, sure, I'm writing a novel. Oh, that's going to be a money maker, isn't it? Oh, yeah, that's where the big money is. And doing odd bits of visual art. If it's fun and creative and there's little prospect of income, get out of my way. I'm ready to go.
So was broken heart insurance the result of a personal issue in your life? What led you to that?
The broken heart part is probably not that exciting a story. I think everybody's got versions of it. We're human beings. But what was interesting for me was the confluence of luck that led me to be able to get some of these songs made. So I mentioned just in passing at the top this documentary that I'm the subject of called Bathtubs Over Broadway, made by a wonderful filmmaker named David Letterman, about how I discovered this hidden world of musical theater for corporations for their annual meetings and conventions. And this wonderful documentary traveled around the country and the world for quite a while in the late teens. I ended up in Nashville and just through lucky breaks met people there. And I'd gone to Nashville thinking, it's Music City. Well, maybe I'll pitch some of my quirky songs somewhere. No, you can't really just walk into some place on Music Row and say, hey, I'm a songwriter. What do you got? Where's my contract? It takes years to break into this very closed ecosystem. So I realized that and said, well, I'm not going to worry about that. But then I get there and I meet people and, you play guitar. Come over to the studio. And, here's this vintage Martin. Let's see what you got. And, you're writing songs. We'd like to hear more about this. Very wonderfully generous and supportive people said, some of these songs you're writing are kind of legitimate. We got to get you set up with a recording session. This shouldn't have happened. Clearly, this was just a astonishing lucky break. But yes, as much as I like to create some stuff on my own, I'm very aware that none of this would have happened without concentric rings of wonderfully generous people saying, there might be something here. Let's help this guy out.
Well, do you think that your viewpoint of the world helps create those scenarios? Like, do you have a positive outlook on the universe at large and therefore that's the life you live?
Positive outlook. Well, that's a complicated question. I would say I have a cheerfully dark and probably it's mostly a good thing that I have a mind tuned by decades of comedy writing and whatever inborn attitude I had. I write a lot of little short comedy music bits now. I've got a YouTube channel. I put them on, and I think for better or worse, no one else on planet Earth is ever going to write a song like that. And it can be hard if you think, well, nobody's knows how to think about you. You're off the charts of strangeness, but maybe in the end that will be okay. Like if whatever you say about this guy, Steve Young, not the football player, you like his stuff, you hate his stuff. It's not really like anything else you're going to find. So I've decided to be at peace with that.
Seems like comedy, whether it's, you know, skit writing or bit writing, or what sounds like comedy songwriting, or what used to be called novelty songwriting, it tends to be apolitical, or the politics are hidden. What do you think? Is that true, or do you have a political agenda? Do you care? Do you want your art to have that in it? No, yes or no, or
I think my natural comfort zone was just cheerful, dark, surreal stuff, not really related to the world of politics. When I joined the Letterman show in the early 90s, it was not at all a world of late night that it later became. Jon Stewart changed that game. And then most of the shows now feel like they have to have their political viewpoint front and center at all times. The Letterman show was not really that. We edged into it because that was just now the world we were in, and oh well, what's our take on the stories of the day? We had to try that. I think I naturally gravitate towards just the personal weird experience things, or fitted sheets as a metaphor for how we must all be okay with a life full of imperfection and making our peace with a fractured universe. I don't think that's quite political, and I reserve the right to become extremely tediously political at some point if I feel the impulse, and it certainly may come on us in the coming years, but it is not my natural zone.
Got it. Have you ever won the New Yorker caption contest for their comic?
No, I look at that and think, oh, some of those are quite good, and I do appreciate the oddness of somebody provides half of it and then someone else takes the pass and slam dunks it. And that happened a lot in the Letterman writer's room, which was a thrilling thing. If someone came in and said, I have the beginning of something, or I have a setup, or I have a strange phrase, I don't even know where it goes, and somebody else says, oh, and somebody else has the right way to end it. If you could see that sort of teamwork, that went. Well,
then who was the person that came up with the idea that you should step out of a police car without your pants on?
That did have a current events inspiration at the time. There was some news story about like some police convention where there had been bad behavior and people were running around semi-naked in the halls of a hotel. This was like back in the mid 90s. So it's a little hazy now. I don't remember who pitched that, but boy, I sure brought it to life, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
So you mentioned that you have a family so children, I'm assuming you raised?
Oh yes, they're old now. They're almost as old as me. I don't know how the physics of that works, but
yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting viewpoint. But so have they supported your career trajectory and choices?
Oh, sure. They came to a show I did a while back where I did some live songs, but they are so fully launched in their own lives with careers and partners, and it's harder than it was when they were 12 to make them attend something. But yeah, they're wow, Daddy's like really got some different chapter of his life going now. Well, good for him.
So none of them went into showbiz?
No, they're both very advanced professionals in different fields, and honestly, I don't know that I could recommend being all in for a show business career at this point in history, when the tides of the economics of it seem to have receded so disastrously. I'm happy that they've found things they're good at and are helping people and are doing good in the world, but they don't need to be writing jokes or doing songs.
And I want to touch on the heartbreak part.
Oh, you do? You want to get into that? Huh? Okay.
So, how's your wife? She's still living with you?
Well, okay, here we go. So no, we're divorced.
And was that part of the thing that you avoided telling me when I asked you about the origins of heartache, broken heart
I
insurance?
mean, that's in the constellation of things swirling around that time. But yeah, and without going into too much detail, yes, big changes in my life and chapters in my life, and new people come and go. And we were married for about 30 years, and in many ways it was terrific and it was a good partnership. But I think human beings were designed to be dead before a lot of these midlife crises happened. It was like 30,000 years ago, you were done by the age of 37. You were just a wreck and being speared by a woolly mammoth. You didn't have to worry about, am I looking at a different chapter in my life? Should I buy a bright red spear as a indication of my midlife crisis? So I'm happy that the girls grew up in a good, stable household, but it was pretty much when they were off at college that things kind of wound down. And yeah, I think that's all I want to say about that. But yes, there's sadness and heartbreak from different directions. Also a lot of pleasure and satisfaction and just learning new things about myself and trying new things in recent years.
Thank you for opening up about that. A lot of people I speak to, I'm 62 or almost 62, and I'm meeting a lot of people who are beginning a new dating life at that age.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if you still are actively engaged in romantic pursuits, and does the country music bent help you find dates?
Oh, well, we're long away from me having enough of a fan base for women to approach me and say, "Hey, I heard you're
I heard that.
surprisingly legitimate alt country humorous songs. I'd like to get to know you better." Not getting any of that. At least if it's out there, it has not been overtly presented to me. The name of my music publishing company on ASCAP is Cautiously Optimistic Publishing, and that represents, I think, a lot of my outlook on life. I refuse to be an oldies act and just have no more chapters. So yeah, I mean, the 2020s have been a bewildering tornado on many fronts, personally and in the larger world. But I dare to hope that there are uplifting stories yet to be told. Again, extremely vague, and that's the way I like it.
Great. So I noticed that you participated in the Writers Guild strike, and then a big part of that was, my understanding was that it was about AI. And both Greg, to the greater extent, is a comedian, and me, I'm a terribly bad comedian who tries once every 5 years just to see if something's changed.
When's your next attempt?
Well, I found an online group where you can go and work material. And one of the things I did, because I'm a talentless hack, was I went to an AI and I had it write me some jokes. And I didn't tell the group, because in the week before they had talked about how AI sucked at writing jokes.
Mm-hmm.
And I got some good laughs during my set with these AI jokes. And so I had that juxtaposition that I was really looking for, was, okay, you guys are anti-AI, but looking at the writing world from your perspective, and the one of the key things that we thought the writer strike was about preserving in the digital era the way that people get compensated. And I'm wondering whether you really see AI as a threat in the writing arena specifically in the comedy writing arena, or not? Because my experience is it's not. It's never going to be good enough to be a threat.
There are different gradations of it. I would say for writing a one-liner joke, we're at the point where AI can maybe be the broken clock that's right twice a day. And yeah, if you ask it to write 50 jokes, you might say, oh, these 4 are actually not bad. Where I think the hit rate will not be threatening to human work anytime soon is longer things like an entire script, an episode of a TV show, a movie. That stuff is so dependent on sustained original mind and voice and sensibility that all the AI can do is predict what the next word should be based on billions of examples. And some people have called it plagiarism software. And it might be able to concoct a joke about a new current events situation based on 50 million jokes that are similar from the past. I considered joke writing and monologue writing already deeply damaged by the world of Twitter and social media in the past dozen years or so. When I was starting on Letterman in the 90s, if you wanted to see current events humor, you had to watch television late at night because you could not look at your phone and get a million jokes scrolling past you 24/7. Now nobody has to wait till 11:30 at night to get a humorous take on the latest whatever is going on. It's flooding up to your eyeballs and beyond all the time. So that's a tough world now. And animators are going to be in deep trouble if they're not already. Longer form writers, I don't think, are quite in the same boat.
Got it. And was the WGA strike partially about that?
It was, because we know Hollywood executives and studios are all about how can we cut costs? What if we never had to pay human writers anymore? What if we never had to pay animators anymore? What if we just ask a computer, write an action movie with The Rock and make it full of smart ass remarks and then make it look real? And we're kind of at the era when you can do something akin to that, and if you don't look too close, it might seem legitimate, and then once you look close, it's no good. But they're desperate because of the pressure from their Wall Street masters. Cut costs at all times, raise profits, and this is crushing the people who make stuff. And so the Writers Guild and the actors, which I'm also part of that union, said we have to make a line in the sand and get some guardrails on this thing. And largely that succeeded. My worry is that people just don't deeply care about movies and TV shows the way they did 30 years ago now, because you have your thing in front of you that goes like this all day and you never have to pay for it again. Or you can pay for Netflix or whatever, but it's such a different ecosystem now, and it's a very tough time, circling back to what we were saying, for a young creative person to say, how am I going to get into this field and buy a house and raise kids on this kind of money?
At the same time, though, technology is very affordable. So editing bay that may be $250,000 to $500,000 in the 90s, now I could go buy for a couple $1,000s.
Yes, so there are wonderful benefits. I've written and acted in several short films that have done very well on the film festival circuit, and predominantly all 3 were shot with one of these. Something in your pocket is now, you don't need to spend $40,000 and have a thing that's going to break your back, and you can get very far with the right skills and the right eye and the right sensibility and the right post-production to make it look better and fix the audio. It's not a miracle worker. It can get you pretty far. But yes, the wonderful upsides, you can buy an amazing television for what, $300 now, and computers and all that. But we're losing the ability to make the money to buy these things. That seems to be slipping away for a lot of people.
Well, and you won a Best Actor award for The Daykeeper.
Thank you.
What was The Daykeeper about, and what was that like writing that? And in fact, the technology is still very much dependent on the ideas in the writing, right? We have the phone, we have the editor.
Yes, that's just a sweet story about how several years ago I was at the Woods Hole, Massachusetts Film Festival on Cape Cod. Met a guy named Mark Kiefer who was there. He's a filmmaker. Kind of hit it off, stayed in touch. Over the years, we said, oh, we ought to make something together sometime. Summer of 2023, we were back on Cape Cod, and we went down to this lighthouse near the film festival, and I began improvising a character of the defensive, embittered lighthouse keeper who has the daytime shift when you can't tell whether the light's even on. But I am certain that even you can't see the light, but it's on, and that's important. And don't tell me my life's been a waste. So I started riffing on that, and he shot some of it with his phone. That wasn't what we ended up using, but later he said, you know, that did seem like there was something there. If we took it seriously, scripted it up, got costumes, produced it, maybe we'd have something. And so we did that kind of spur of the moment last March. And he's very good at not only the shooting and editing, but sourcing costumes and figuring out digital backgrounds for some offices that anyway, so we made this thing very cheaply, and it has gone around on the film festival circuit with some very gratifying success. And yeah, Mystic, Connecticut's film festival, I found out, oh, I'm a Best Actor and in a short film. I did not see that coming. It's been a fun other little side chapter of my life, and then things unroll from that. People who saw the film in Mystic said, oh, you're kind of an interesting presence on camera. Would you be interested sometime if we maybe had some role for you in a film we're doing? And I said, oh, sure. Next thing you know, I'm in the woods of Connecticut with a trench coat, a gun, and a shovel playing a hitman and somebody else's movie. So just my philosophy these days is get out of your house or apartment, go to things, go to places, meet people. You have no idea what surprising doors will swing open. And you don't need Hollywood to green light your $18 million script. You can go make things with talented friends who may have this. They may have a $10,000 camera and a truckload of gear, which these other folks certainly did. But just get going on something. And with the same thing with the music. When I was starting to write songs, I never thought I was going to be in Nashville with A-list musicians. I just thought, apparently this is something I do now, and I'm entertaining myself with it.
Is there another album in the hopper?
Oh, I've got loads of other songs, and some of them are home recordings that I've had help with, like hired a real drummer or got somebody to mix it. I've got a very eclectic batch of stuff always growing on the shelf. I'm not sure what form the next album will take. I thought it's going to be such an eclectic batch of rock and roll and twisted singer-songwriter, folky, and I thought maybe it's just songs you didn't see coming. And what is he singing about? Anthracite coal? No, that can't be a song. I don't know if that'll make it on the next batch or not, but yeah, things like that.
Well, when I saw the video for Wordle's Dance Daddy song,
Oh yeah,
I immediately thought that this could be something that gets longer and longer and could eventually be displayed as an electronic thing in a museum.
Oh, so you're thinking big. You've got new kinds of ideas I don't have yet, which is great. See, I never know what left field thing is going to spark me off in a new direction. The Wordle song, I don't know if there'll be a sequel or it'll extend, but I still do the Wordle. And every time I get a bizarre juxtaposition of two words together making a cryptic phrase, I still do take screenshots, put them in a folder thinking, might be a chapter 2 someday. Don't know yet.
Got it.
So did you do today's Wordle?
No, I haven't gotten to it yet. Yesterday, I got it in 3.
I got it in 3 yesterday.
Yeah.
The day before, I think I was very upset. I had a pretty good streak, and then I got stumped and got very upset.
Yeah, that's the only puzzle sort of thing I really like. People assume, oh, you're a word guy. You must love the crossword puzzles. No, I never liked crossword puzzles. I don't understand all my ins and outs of what appeals to me and what doesn't, but I do like the Wordle.
All right.
I've been doing online Scrabble with my girlfriend on the couch at night.
Okay. You got
That's
two
my-
country songs.
Yeah.
Scrabble song and your girlfriend on the couch, and how that's going to turn out.
What are you guys? Like, hey, up for a little Scrabble on the couch?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Scrabble is a very effective euphemism for whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Tom Lear keeps coming up as someone, with the genre that you're in. Are you a fan of Tom Lear?
Yeah, Tom Lehrer, Alan Sherman also.
Yeah.
They both did a lot of song parodies with pre-existing music, and I do some of that occasionally, just like little off-the-cuff fun stuff. Yeah, Tom Lehrer, fascinating genius, and people are still listening to his like song about the elements or Hanukkah and Santa Monica, all these things that are just really durable and satisfying. And my other weird connection to him, I was mentioning this record collection of mine that spurred this documentary, Bathtubs Over Broadway, all about the secret subterranean world of musical theater commissioned by corporations. In 1966, Tom Lehrer, I don't know how much they had to lure him, how much money, but Dodge, the car company, got him to write a bunch of songs that are in a film that was never for the public. It was only shown to Dodge dealers and salesmen, all about the new 1967 Dodges and why they were so much better than the Pontiacs and the Fords and the Mercurys and all that. So he occasionally swerved into the shadow world of corporate gigs as well, which I love about him. He once did an interview in which he said, yeah, I did that Dodge thing and it was fun. Kind of wish it had never turned up again though. But yeah.
And so you have a copy of that record?
It's that's a film that is on YouTube in various.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I have on record albums, and then were never filmed, and there's some stuff that was filmed but never made a record album. So all over the place.
And you wrote a book about this subject, and then you produced a play, Industrial Strength Broadway.
Oh, okay, yeah. So the book is called Everything's Coming Up Profits, the Golden Age of Industrial Musicals. And Everything's Coming Up Profits is actually the title of a terrible little industrial musical show for a floor tile company from the late 60s. They just took like some Broadway show tunes like Everything's Coming Up Roses and just slapped some new lyrics in there about the sheet vinyl and floor tile. And it was like 5 performers and 1 piano and a hotel ballroom, very low end. But yeah, Everything's Coming Up Profits with my friend Sport Murphy, another record collector. The documentary by David Whisenant. I do a live show. Some of them are one-man shows where I go around. I'm going to Palm Springs next month for part of Modernism Week and do my show there. But last year in Palm Springs, big show with like a cast of 7 performers and live music and big projections. So the industrial musical stuff is a little bit of a cottage industry for me, and I love doing that. I'm very comfortable getting up in front of people and saying, look what I found, this incredible weird world of music that these sometimes geniuses wrote for these corporate gigs. What's weirder for me now is to get up in front of people with a guitar and say, this is my own song. I need your attention now because it's me now. It's not something I found. I wrote this. That I'm still struggling with a little bit, but I'm getting out there. I'm doing some songwriter open mics and planning my own shows. So trying to just walk the walk.
Sweet. So these corporate musicals, they weren't intended for like Broadway. They were meant for a corporate gig.
Yeah, the public could not go to these things. The record albums that were pressed, very minuscule quantities of souvenir private pressing records, not for broadcast, not for air, home use only, souvenir use only. They were full of sometimes privileged information about the specifications of the new tractor transmission. And the Ford tractor people did not want the people over at John Deere hearing what they got under wraps for the coming year. So yeah, there was.
Was it for entertaining their people they've hired? It was purely.
Yeah, it was. I would call it infotainment. All right, you're all together at the big convention once a year or whatever in the sales meeting, and we're all going to be backslapping and rah-rahing and cheerleading about what a great year it's going to be with our new products and our new marketing, this and that. And the songs in these shows, and some of them were full book musicals, were sometimes just about what a great thing it is to be an American who can work for a company where we're bringing great things to the world and we're all making money. But sometimes they were loaded with what my late friend Hank Beebe called freight, the lyrics all about the specifications for the new calculator. And there should not be a song about the memory module and connecting cable of the new calculator, but some lyricist had to make that happen and try to make it actually kind of work. And as a creative person, I thought, what a crazy mountain to have to climb. Take the least promising topic for a song that you could ever imagine and try to make it work. I loved that.
And in your research, did you find the germination of this idea, like what company or who it was that thought this was a good idea?
The origins are a little cloudy. The earliest record I have is from 1953. Oldsmobile seemed to be at the vanguard of, let's do a real musical with characters and a plot all about the new Oldsmobiles. And I think other companies had dabbled in smaller versions of it where it's just a review and, all right, here's the new 49 Buick, and we'll have one song about that, and then we'll have the band play and everyone will cheer. And then but no, the full book musical kind of was mid-50s post-war America, where middle class people had gotten to think, South Pacific, My Fair Lady, these are premier middle class entertainments. They're not even just for people in New York anymore. We can buy the original cast album of South Pacific or whatever and enjoy it in our home. So yeah, musicals were on the front row of the culture. These companies said, you know what we should do? People like musicals now. We'll just have a musical about selling General Electric dishwashers, and it's perfect. And it's bizarre, and some of them are horrible, but some of them are kind of great.
The series of The Incredible Mrs. Mabel was the first instance I had seen into this, because there's a couple episodes built around how this character ends up getting a little bit of pay by being part of an industrial musical in the show.
Like a trash collector or
that's right.
And many people pointed this out to me, and I read a little about it, in which the creative team on the show said, oh yes, we're well aware of Bathtubs Over Broadway and this genre that has been brought to light recently. So yeah, I pushed it along with Sport Murphy and Deva, the director of the movie, a little bit into the zeitgeist. It's still very puzzling for a lot of people, because it seems like something comedy writers must have made up, but then it turns out, no, it was real.
Well, I'm just reminded of the General Electric ride at Disneyland. It's a great big beautiful tomorrow.
Oh, was that at the 64 World's Fair maybe? Because there was like Carousel of Progress or something.
Yeah, that was it. And then they brought it to Disneyland, and that was one of my favorite rides when I was
the World's Fairs of that era were very corporately themed. You had the Kodak Pavilion and the Ford and the DuPont and General Motors and General Electric. And those were very similar to what I would call industrial shows, but the public could go to them. What I've just continued to find astonishing was that so much money and talent was poured into the things behind closed doors that the public was never supposed to know about. And it's only the strangest accident that enough of it came across my path and a few other people that we were able to reconstruct. Oh my God, this was bigger than Broadway. This dwarfed Broadway in terms of how much money, talent, how many shows were done over the years.
Would they hire like real stars to be a part of it sometimes?
Yes. Sometimes you see people on their way up. In the documentary, I talked to Florence Henderson, Martin Short, Cheetah Rivera. people who were getting their toehold in Broadway, but were maybe not mega stars quite yet. And then sometimes corporations would say, oh, Hal Linden, we had him in our 1966 Buick show. Now he's famous because of, he got a Tony Award, and then he was Barney Miller. But let's see how much money Hal Linden would need to come back to the 1983 Ford dealer convention show. And then, sometimes they put up the money for A-list stars to come back and be part of it. I have a bootleg DVD of an Anheuser-Busch convention. Frank Sinatra, Liza Minnelli, Sammy Davis Jr., I think Dean Martin, they all come out. I was praying that they were going to sing a song about beer distribution. They never did. They just did like their classic standard, and which was, the audience was perfectly happy with that. But I crave the bizarre mutant songs that never should have existed about topics no song should ever be about.
Well, that's what an AI could do for you now, is you could get Frank Sinatra to sing a beer song.
Yeah, and that's another weird thing about the AI world. I have songwriter friends who have started experimenting with the music and song generation AI stuff. And again, you might give it a prompt and tweak the prompt and get 12 versions that you just go, no. But then the 13th one, you go, Mike, that's actually pretty good. And what do you do with that? Do you feel like you can use that, or do you reverse engineer it and build your own song out of this AI thing? It's such a wild west of.
Well, I think once you inject that into the process, it totally colors your sense of well-being and your sense of creative identity. And it's not a heroin I would want to take as a creative writer.
But there are artists I see like on Instagram and doing videos, etc., that they're AI artists. And
if you grapple with that head on and say, I'm going to use this as a tool. Here's what I did. I'm not lying to you. I'm not trying to get away with something. I'm saying, here's my input and here's what came out. And this is a new frontier. In theory, I think that can be okay. It's where it gets dodgy. And did you write this, or did a machine write it?
Right.
And that sort of swamp.
Yeah, authenticity is so important to us as an audience. We don't want to be fooled.
Yeah.
Except the way we want to be fooled.
Yeah. And I like playing with AI sometimes. And I've had AI generate fake album covers for industrial musicals that never existed. And some of them are thrillingly misguided and misbegotten and wrong in ways that are hilarious. The fun will be over when they're too good to tell the difference from the real one.
Well, you could always do like wacky packs with the bubblegum cards in it. I
still got a stack of those in a drawer somewhere.
All right, that's awesome.
So I want to move the conversation kind of into the area of how you found work in relationship to Matt Groening, and how the Christmas special came about. All of the Other Reindeer.
That's right. Yeah, I guess in the mid 90s, I'd been at Letterman for several years, but I wanted to try to get some different kinds of credits on my resume. I knew people at the Simpsons. That was kind of the dream team out west. I was in New York, still am. But at the time, they had maybe 2 episodes a season that outsiders could do as a freelance script. And I managed to get in the door there and had a wonderful few days out in the LA writer's room of The Simpsons with all these terrific, funny people. There was an idea for an episode. They just had a few lines as a premise, and then everybody sat for days and riffed on it. And I turned it into an outline and then a draft. That all went very well. The episode is called Hurricane Neddy, and it is well regarded, and because of many wonderful people. But Matt Groening remembered me when he was trying to get this Christmas special off the ground with this children's book called All of the Other Reindeer. And I don't know exactly all the backstory, if they tried other people, it didn't work out. But suddenly I was approached, would you be able to work on this? And there was not much time. I think the schedule was short. And again, kind of a dream team, everything lined up. A terrific producer named Claudia Della Rocco, I'm still very friendly with. they had Drew Barrymore as the voice of the little dog. They had Michael Stipe singing lyrics that I wrote. This was very early songwriting for me. I was just doing the lyrics at that point. But yeah, I wouldn't say I got to know Matt Groening deeply well, but he came to New York one other time and said, hey, you want to hang out? And we ended up spending the afternoon at the Museum of Modern Art, which was fascinating to go through with him. And he said something that I always remembered about his standard for, is something good art? Is art? Is it a good piece of art? If you saw it in a dumpster, would you rescue it? And that's kind of his barometer. And I thought, that's a good practical real world question about, I don't know what it means. I don't know if it's valuable. I don't know its pedigree. I just think that's worth pulling out of a dumpster. So I like
Yeah, that is good. I like that too.
Do you think it held up as a Christmas special? I'd like to see it myself now that I know you wrote it, but it doesn't seem to have landed in the perennial or the annual Christmas special category.
It's out there, and I know a lot of younger people who say, oh my God, I watched that so often when I was a kid, or oh, I love that. I think you can see it on YouTube, and I haven't watched it in quite a while, but I think it is very, very nicely done. And I'm glad I brought something to the table there, but the animation and the production and the voices and all that really came together nicely. One of those rare instances where you look back and say, there is almost nothing about it that I would change, even if I could.
Cool.
Did it win an Annie Award? What was the Annie Award for?
That's right, Annie Award for animation. And yes, the script won an Annie Award, which I have up on a shelf there. It was nominated for an Emmy also. I think I hold, I don't know if it's the all-time record, but it may be the East Coast record for most Emmy nominations with no wins.
Oh,
Which
that's a hard record to hold.
There's still time.
At this point, I don't know if I'll ever have any involvement with Emmys or television awards again, but a solid streak of 20 nominations and no wins. That's a beautiful thing. I would hate to endanger that by winning.
That's a lot of tuxedo rentals.
Eventually, you buy your own tuxedo, yes.
Wow. God,
So
how was
how's your
it with
relationship
you?
with David Letterman now?
What's that?
How's your relationship with David Letterman now?
It's good. I mean, I don't see him frequently. There was a brunch a year or two ago. A bunch of old veterans, inner circle people went to, and I saw him briefly there. But when I put out the album last year, and it's out, on Spotify and Amazon and all the platforms, I thought, well, I gotta give this a real try. And I asked through his like people, would Mr. Letterman would he consider giving me a blurb for the album? And he came back very quickly with, Steve Young is a show business triple threat, or is it quadruple threat? Who cares? Nobody is safe. So I trot that out on all my promotional material. So very grateful that he has a fond feeling for me on that front.
That's very good.
Have you thought about going out west to perform some of these materials, and specifically maybe Montana?
Montana. Well, I've never been to Montana yet. Well, the Daykeeper, the short film we were talking about, that just played at a film festival in Butte, Montana a few days ago. And as charming as it would be to go to Montana, I didn't really want to put down all the money for the travel in January. I think
it's -20 there this week.
Let's wait till April or May before I get my introduction to Montana. I'm at the point where with these songs I'm writing and starting to get out and perform, hopefully there will be ripple effects and I'll go more places. Right now I've done a few songwriter open mics and planning my own show in New York City, and there's a few steps at a time here and there. Montana, I would be curious to see how what happens in my life to get me up on a stage in Montana. I don't know.
Well, Dave's near there. He's near Butte.
Yes. And if he says, we got to get Steve Young up on stage here in Butte, Montana, well, he has made wonderful things happen in my life many times. So he knows where to find me.
You're going to Palm Springs next month in February?
Yeah, that's part
Okay,
of modernism
That's
week.
more your speed.
yeah. And I was thinking if you could stop in Montana, but that's still too
No, it's
winter
not on the
time.
way.
Not, yeah.
Could you just ask the pilot if he could just dip down into Montana for? I just jump out. You don't even have to land. I'll just
You just give me a parachute and open the door.
and then swing by later if you're able to circle, and then we'll
Yeah,
figure
one
it
of those hook things where they hook you on and lift you up.
out.
Well, I
Again,
think for 80 grand, you could probably fly private and then you could set your own itinerary.
I love the way you guys think big. I got to learn to be more like you. Problems just exist to be blown past in your world. Good for you.
Yeah.
Well, you went all out on that Telly guitar behind you. I can tell that it's a very nice. What brand Telly is that?
Oh, that's a Michael Kelly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a few guitars here in New York, and I do love the wood grain on that. It plays
And
good.
the artistry that
Thanks.
goes into them. I'm a guitar player myself, so I
yeah.
noticed it right away.
Yeah. And I played acoustic exclusively for a long time. I came up through a teacher who was all about finger picking and country blues and ragtime. And it's only in the last couple of years that I have finally started to live out my teenage rock star fantasies by having a couple of cool electrics.
Did you find it difficult to transition because of the difference in string tension on the electric guitar?
It's probably worse if you've played electric for decades and then have to go to acoustic. Acoustic bites back on you a little more, and you probably got to have a little more strength in the fingers. At this point, I think I can switch between them, but then you get into the weeds of, oh, what about the scale length? Oh, do I need a 24.75 or a 25.5? Or I have a baritone somewhere across the room that's a 27-inch scale length. Oh, we could do a whole other episode about the minutiae of the guitars, I'm sure.
Well, feel free to invite yourself on for that.
Okay.
So, have you ever ridden mopeds in any level?
I wondered if we would get around to that, and what is the origin of the moped angle for you guys? My father, when he was younger, had motorcycles, and I would sometimes ride along on the back, but they were more hefty, larger size machines. I don't think there was ever a moped in the picture.
Mopeds have been pretty much replaced by e-bikes now. I noticed in my neighborhood, there's a lot of 14 to 18-year-old young men who are ripping around at 45 miles an hour with no helmet on their e-bike.
And then the little tiny scooters with a battery on it, and you're just standing on this thing with two wheels the size of donuts, and you're hurtling down a road. Yeah. But what is the history with you guys and mopeds?
Well, I'll let Greg tell that story. Don't be shy, Greg. Tell the whole tale.
Our first name for this podcast, we found out, was really offensive. And though some who knew us appreciated the joke, it was quickly told to us that if a person didn't know us, this would probably shut the door. So we needed a new name. And we were doing a live stream of our podcast. And I was telling the story of when I had 3 ounces of magic mushrooms grammed out in VHS cases when you would go to a store and rent a VHS.
Mm-hmm.
And I was on a broken down moped at night, and the police were trying to pull me over because there was no headlight. It was a wreck, and I was trying to outrun them. And I was telling this story, and one of our friends said, "Hey, Moped Outlaws. That's the name of your podcast."
We'll tell the rest of the story. What did the police do, Greg?
Well, so they caught me and they took me to jail, and they never opened the VHS cases. So when my friends came to bail me out, they handed everything back to me. And in the elevator going down, I said to my friend, "Oh my God, I've got all these mushrooms on me. They didn't even," but exactly. That's what my friend said. "What the fuck are you doing? We're not out of here yet."
That's right. You're not a very good moped outlaw if you're just blurting that out in the police station.
Well, yeah, that outlaw was not meant to be a big, I don't know. Anyway.
So your life of crime kind of petered out eventually.
Yeah, I still in my heart, I still like rebel without a cause.
Okay. And were you able to upgrade your transportation?
Yes, but both Mark and I think, have led a life of a starving artist for quite some time. So
We think that you might be able to write us a theme song, Steve.
I'm very
Now
good
that you know that,
prompts like that.
there's the invitation for you.
All right, I'm going to write that down.
I'm a moped outlaw. I've been riding the range at 20 miles an hour. It gives you a good view. Occasionally, I dip into my VHS cassette for a little of that. Anyway, my skills at writing songs on the spot are petering out right now.
Oh, but you seem to have, you had some momentum there. So there's
if I'd had my guitar in my hand, I would have gone on for at least 36 verses and all on 2 chords. Oh, here we go. This is great.
But it's not plugged in, so we
can't hear you really, but go ahead.
Maybe that's for the best. Moped outlaw, riding the range. Moped outlaw, life's is strange. That's all I got.
Awesome. Well, if you get any further, we certainly love to integrate that into our theme song.
Okay.
I'm wondering, before we wrap up, do you think with these corporate musicals that there was a frivolity and innocence to capitalism of the time that no longer exists?
Yes, and I don't want to over sugarcoat it or be too much of an apologist. There's always the same human beings and their strains of greed and paranoia. But there was a time, I would say, roughly, I don't know, after World War II up into the 70s, where companies could afford to say, we're all kind of in the same family here, and we want to see these people every year and stay with our organization and grow with us. And the CEOs only made like 12 times as much as the average employee, not 50,000 times as much. They did feel like we're all in this together. And the better companies said, you know what, we can even use these shows to admit mistakes and own it when we did something wrong, and humorously have a song about, whoa, we screwed up last year. And you could get so much credibility from an audience if you could be that honest in these shows. And it was a fun way to do it. But yeah, by the 70s, it was starting to become more, doesn't matter if anyone likes to work at these companies. It doesn't matter if the products are good. We're just beholden to the consultants and the shareholders and the Wall Street and all that. And now we're still trying to dig ourselves out of that.
So you said earlier that your outlook on the universe is darkly cheerful. Was that what it was?
Darkly cheerful, or maybe cheerfully dark. They kind of,
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That's an important distinction.
Here we are, the beginning of 2025. And we have a new administration coming in, and we've got Southern California on fire. And as you mentioned, the 20s have been quite the thing. Do you have a hopeful outlook for humanity, and especially the United States?
Long term, I'll go back to my phrase, cautiously optimistic that the pendulum will swing on some fronts, because life and history does seem to be, all right, this happened, and then there's a reaction to it, and then there's an overreaction to it, and then there's a reaction and it swings. So we're swung way up on a side that I'm not enthusiastic about on several fronts. And I hope that before too much permanent damage is done, that will swing back again. That's about as political as I usually get. I dare to be somewhat cheerful. I have a guitar. I have an internet connection. I have friends and loved ones. Life is not unremittingly terrible, but yeah, there's darkness.
All right. Well, thanks for sharing some of your darkness with us today, Steve.
Sure. May I also share, for anybody who's gotten this far, if they've gotten this far, they should get the links to go check out some of my stuff.
Yeah.
That was okay.
We will for sure include that in the comments section for the YouTube and on the Apple stuff for sure.
But yeah, definitely. What are the links?
You can get to the album Broken Heart Insurance, sort of a landing page that brings you to the Spotify and Amazon and Apple and all that. steveyoungmusic.hearnow.com, HEARNOW.com. And on YouTube, my YouTube channel is Steve Young World. And I've got a playlist of little fun shorts, as well as really slickly produced music videos for some of the Nashville tracks that I'm very pleased with. By the time anyone's watching this, I don't know if TikTok will exist anymore. I'm on TikTok. I don't feel that devoted to it. It's not really my world so far, but I've put some stuff on there. Steve Young World on TikTok as well.
All right.
I went deep on those shorts today, and as part of my research, it was a lot of fun seeing you on that stage, dressed so fine with the lighting, and
again, wonderful, generous friends, all coming together to say, "What if this? What if that?" And I've been along for quite a ride.
Well, your generous heart has really contributed a lot to people. And when you write comedy, sometimes you don't know exactly the level of impact. But I know that probably thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people got up the next morning and got back into their life, largely because they stayed up late to watch you and see your stuff. And we have one last question that we ask all our guests before we wrap up. But I want to thank you for your time today. It's been a real pleasure to hang out with you, and I hope we get to do it again.
Yeah, so you know where to find me anytime.
Here's the question that if you made it through all of our episodes to the end, you already know this question. But if you didn't, Foo Fighters or Eminem?
Here's where you've exposed my Achilles heel. I have very spotty knowledge of a lot of pop culture beyond the mid 1980s. I'm just going to say Foo Fighters because they were such a big part of the Late Show family, and Dave was so fond of them, and they were fond of him, and came on like after he had his heart surgery, and were on the final show in May of 2015. So I don't have a deep knowledge of Foo Fighters, but I do have the general good feeling about them. Eminem, he might be terrific too. Less certain about his universe, but since I have to choose, I'll go with Foo Fighters.
All right.
Thank you so much, Steve. It's been a pleasure.
What about you guys, Foo Fighters or Eminem?
We can't choose. We want them to do a joint album together.
Yeah, we want them to get together, but it may never be possible given Dave's recent behavior.
All right, but presumably
I would go Foo Fighters myself.
All right.
And I think Greg, you go Eminem, right?
I couldn't choose. Eminem, they're both. That's like saying, what's your favorite album? What's your favorite movie? You can't choose.
But they all watch this podcast, so now they're going to hear about this idea and say, "Hey, did you hear what the Moped Outlaws were saying? Yeah, let's do it."
That'd be awesome.
Well, I think you should call Dave. He might need an opener for his next open mic, because he might be just doing open mics in the future.
Oh yes, and maybe I'll be on stage with him up in Montana.
Yeah.
There's always hope if you're optimistic or cautiously optimistic, yes, which I think will probably be the title for this episode, right, Greg?
The last 10 years of my life have been so full of amazing, weird surprises. Some not good, but many fantastic. If I look back in a few years and say, "Oh, that was really when the ball started rolling about me being a popular performer in Montana," it's just about as far-fetched as other things that have happened. So maybe that's where we're going.
Well, if Steve Martin can bring back the banjo, anything is possible.
Yes, I chatted with him a little bit. He was at the sort of rap party at the end of the Letterman show, and I'm sure he's very good at making conversation with anybody, but I think he's probably used to people who want to talk about comedy, but I wanted to talk to him about bluegrass and Flat and Scruggs, and his eyes lit up and he was having a great conversation.
That's great. We should do that for each other more often. Find that hidden niche that actually excites person, and not just the dumb thing that everyone thinks they are.
Yeah. Well, Florence Henderson, when I chatted with her in this documentary, I think she'd spent the last 40 years talking about the Brady Bunch, but finally somebody wanted to ask her about the 58 Oldsmobile Dealer musical.
Recording stopped.